Hello.
Hi there.
Hello, everyone. We had a bunch of people, and I think they disappeared on us. But if you are watching, and even if you're watching the rerun, you can always chime in and comment even after the fact. So we'd love to have you chat with us tonight. My name's Pam Raposa. I'm the Artistic Director of Theater 444. And this is our Theater Talk series that we've started this year, doing once a month. To talk about all the work of the theater that we don't always know about or we don't always see. And this is RJ Raposa, one of our lighting people, and he's going to talk about lighting tonight. So if you're a lighting person or you're interested in lighting, feel free to chime in the comments. We'd happy to answer questions or have you share your experiences with us. All of that, right? So, hi, Art.
Hi, Pam. Thanks for having me on.
Talk a little bit about your background, maybe?
Sure. So I got into lighting design while I was studying theater at SUNY Fredonia, and really sort of fell in love with the medium, and as opposed to some of the other central technical elements.
Which there are a lot of. People
there are.
How many there are.
And then, flash forward since, and there's been more lighting projects and more theatrical projects than I care to tally at this point. I remember at one point I did try to, I think we tried to add them up at one point, and it was like over 100.
Yeah, at this point, you and I've been working on theater together for many, many, many years.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk. We're going to talk about lighting design, but also about like some of the experiences you've had and just the impact that lighting has on the production and the storytelling piece of it. I know you've taught me to grow as far as like how I feel about lighting, and lighting is super important to me now because of you. Because it impacts the way you react to something. And very similarly, like music sometimes can touch us or move us, or the lighting can also do that for us. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And then I want to show, I got tons of photos of some of your work and other people's work with Theater 444 and with me. I just grabbed as many pictures as I could that I thought were just beautiful. Because I think that one of the things we do well in this company is design. We put a lot of effort and thought into what we're showing people, and it's important to us. So why don't you talk about what's the job of the lighting designer? Like, what is the job?
It's funny because I had someone say to me once that a good lighting design when the audience doesn't notice it. And I think that that's true in some cases, when, maybe it's a classic interior set play, and you're just maybe trying to replicate an indoor space, and the work is sort of, even just like, it's going to stand on its own. That you don't want to necessarily distract from anything. You're really just providing illumination. Can I see everyone's faces? And, all those kinds of basic things. However, the lighting that is the most fun, and the place that I started to really start to get a feel for lighting as a artistic medium, was when I was lighting dance productions at Fredonia, at SUNY Fredonia, because it's all of a sudden less about seeing everyone's face than it is about sort of sculpting their bodies and highlighting movement, as opposed to just plain old, can I see their face on stage. And now the projects that I enjoy the most are when there's sort of a blend of those things. That, yes, there's of course a basic palette and you want everybody to be able to see and understand, but it's where the lighting becomes, I think of it a little bit like painting with light, where you can assist the director in highlighting certain people or certain locations. You can change locations without changing scenery. You're indicating time of day. You're indicating
passing.
What's that?
Time passing.
Yep, time passing. Even also even time in big ways. Like we just did a production at Geneva High School where we were, half of it actually probably 2/3 of it we wanted to look like it was black and white in the 1920s, and then other spots when it was an actual movie, poof, we wanted it to feel like you were in Technicolor, and so you do those two things very differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
I think it's pretty subtle sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and other times it can be very extreme, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I often will say to RJ or Garrett, sometimes Garrett's doing lights for me, or Brooke, I'll say, I really want this. And they'll look at me and be like, yeah, you can't have that. Or they'll figure out another way to make it happen. And it's pretty amazing to watch the artistry of it. It's not just about turning the lights on and turning the lights off. It's much different than that.
But
I'm going to throw a picture for you, RJ, because you're gonna crack up because this is an old one.
Okay. I'm glad that you said it's an old one. So yeah, this is Wild Party for Seneca Community Players.
It was Wild Party, yeah, many years ago.
Black and white and silver set, mostly black and white costuming and grays, shades of gray. And, this is a great shot where, you see the fact that the lighting is doing a bunch of different things at the same time. It's kind of providing some reflective qualities on the set, with the silver edging and stuff, making those areas pop. But it's also highlighting, kind of making the bodies that where they had just collapsed from a dance. I believe this is the end of Juggernaut.
Yeah.
When, everyone was just danced till they're exhausted and kind of had that moment. So, yeah.
I love this picture because it's like so subtle, and it looks like maybe we just turn the lights on, but it's so intentional.
Mm-hmm.
When
you talked about an old picture, that was something that I was going to say too, that I think is really important. We are of a certain age, and the thing that Gen Xers that have stayed in the game, have gotten to experience, is that back when we started, there was those times when you would say, oh, RJ, I want the back to go from orange, and then I want it to be purple, and then I want it to be that. And we would have the situation whereby you had to put, if you think about a light bulb, and you had to put a piece of film in front of it that was a certain color, and that was your choice. There were times when I was in college, we would actually change filters. They're called color filters or gels. We would actually change them during intermission, but you still had a a
physically do
finite
it.
list of, I can give you three, like three different washes when you mix the colors. Flash forward to we just, last couple of years at Geneva High School where they've renovated or they've upgraded their lighting system to all LEDs. And now, we're sitting at a light board and Pam can say pink. And then I throw up a pink and she's like, pinker. And I just have to do click and it goes pinker. And, oh, no, maybe more red, click, and it's kind of changed the game in some ways in terms of what you can do. I find, especially with color, that it's just kind of changed the whole thing. This is Evita at the Smith Opera House. This was not my lighting design, but I loved the design. This was Garrett, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The thing that's cool about this picture, a bunch of things are happening for me in this picture. One, it's doing a beautiful job of highlighting the beautiful construction of that set that Simon Hadley built, and really making that stand out. But it's also, to the naked eye, if you're not someone who works in this space a lot, you might not know what you're looking at. But behind the set there is the actual physical back wall of the picture. And I love the way this lighting is highlighting that texture and almost making a sky out of it, using the texture of that wall, while at the same time, you're absolutely sure what you should be looking at. On this gigantic stage, I'm supposed to be looking at these two folks right in the middle, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too, right? Is where should we be looking?
Yep.
And part of the design is knowing how to get the audience to look where you want them to look.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And this is another good one. Very simple, isolated lighting, but it works. It's so nice. The color of her dress versus the back wall, which is also white, but he's toned it in such a way that it's making the white of her pop and it sit in contrast a bit to the door opening and the back wall, while still there might be some situations where you would want there to be a dark stage and just that. But it's not. In this case, you want the audience to remember that she's addressing people. And so you see them lit in a different way on the deck there. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It also had some practicals in it too, by the way.
Yeah. Just here's another one from Evita. Speaking of, we've learned to use projection a lot in our design at this point, and these actors have practicals in their hands, and this is hard to light when you have light when you're holding light too.
Yeah, the use of projections is another thing that's really changed, because you have to be careful that you're not washing out a screen, and we all know what that looks like, and sometimes you got to deal with that a little bit. But this is a great, and we've said twice now, we've said practical, so that's what we call anything that isn't like a lighting instrument that's hung or permanently placed somewhere. A practical is like, in this case, candles, candle lights, or a lamp on stage, or a wall sconce. Yeah, and this is where you can see a little bit of that washout there in the center, where you have to just kind of split the difference sometimes. But it's that's a great shot. That's a beautiful shot of sort of showing the historical reference, and then how you were portraying that, bringing that forth on stage. That's a great shot.
Yeah.
That's a great shot.
I was looking for one of your first, our first production, Theater 444's very first production, was Spring Awakening.
Sure was.
And I'm looking for those photos.
As you're looking for those, I'll just say you know, we've been doing very with Theater 444, we've been doing more contemporary pieces than classic pieces. And
Hmm.
what you see with more contemporary theater is the intentional use of light. It's not just providing illumination, like we were saying. It's really used as in the artistic toolbox. And I was picturing a picture from uh, Spring Awakening where the adults were lit in these really long, sharp rectangles. I don't know if you can. Yes, there it is. So that is entirely light. What you see there, the floor was painted a cool grayish white.
Lavender.
This is all light. Like it looks like that was painted on the stage, but those are lighted rectangles. And then you have this soft circle in the center. And that telling you so much about the characters. The two adults in the show are incredibly rigid. They live black and white, hard edges, there are corners, whereas the young people are recognizing that it's a lot more shades of gray. And this is also two young men who are expressing compassion and love for each other as friends. And it's a great example of how lighting can help to tell the story, not just see your faces. Yeah. Um, these are this yeah, some of these I love some of these pictures. We've got shorthand that Pam and I and Garrett use. That picture had the Framundas,
That
like
one.
if you see on the left and right, those were lights that were placed under the seating platforms so that they shot out like that from the sides. And we used that to create a lot of depth so that it's got sort of this water, kind of this deep feeling to it, but then he's floating on top. Just a great, great shot. And then there's this idea of isolation. We want you to pay total attention to what's going on just in this little bubble. It's nothing else matters right now. I don't need you to think about any other characters. I don't need you to think about what's going on. I want you to think about, in this case, someone feeling really isolated and struggling.
Same.
Same. Yeah, there's your From Unders again, with this time in red, and she was singing a song that was very challenging and very angry for a very good reason. And again, just punching her out of that field of red. Nicely done. Here we have some more what we would call practicals. So you see those lights that are hanging down from the ceiling. And so those were used in different situations where we wanted to represent, a certain, if you're not familiar with Spring Awakening, it's bopping back and forth between old timey, but then this rock and roll kind of musicality and different situations. And we used that. Lavender is really important to that show. And this is a great, it should be noted. This is a good example. This show is a good example of what we call production design. It's where the lights and the set and the costume and all those pieces come together. And what do they create? Painting a stage, stages are black. That's what just the way it goes. The stages are black. But we made this really strong choice of this color, and it allowed us to do some amazing, amazing things. Okay, so here's another thing. So if you imagine so this is what's called a gobo, G-O-B-O. And gobos are little pieces of metal. They're metal discs that go inside a lighting instrument. And they go but they go between what you would think of as the light bulb and the lens. And the light goes through them and you focus it down, or if not, to get sharper or looser edges, and you can project patterns like that. So in this case, it was a leafy kind of just a sort of naturey.
They were in the woods.
Yeah, they were in the woods. But you might have seen that in productions where there's like stark prison bars that are, or a win or like a living room or a kitchen window, with that shape. It's just a way to really. It's another tool. Again, this is also changed to some degree. They now have digital ones of these that can be put into more modern instruments, but still mostly even with newer contemporary instruments, it's this physical flat metal plate. I wish I had one. I could probably find one, but
yeah, it goes right in the instrument. It goes right in there.
Yeah.
So that you can. Here, I'm trying to find a couple more pictures of what a gobo would look like. This was one we used for Sweeney Todd. That it kind of illustrated that they were in this basement below, where there was a light above, kind of shining through a grate.
Yeah, coming through a grate.
Yeah, and then here is one from Rent that we used to kind of indicate a church.
Like a church window, yeah.
After a death that was during Rent.
Where this is both doing a couple different things. It's giving you a sense of place with that church, indicating that sort of heavenly sort of church feel, but then also the isolation of having this light in the center with no one in it, which is sort of the point.
The
lack of someone. And so it's kind of doing those couple things at once.
Yeah. So if you're on and you have questions, feel free to chime in, or even if you want to share your own experiences, we would love to chat with you. RJ and I both get super excited about lighting design and what it can do as far as emotions for an audience. And I will say one of the things that I think you're most proud of, I think I'm most proud of you for, is Next to Normal. When we did Next to Normal, that set was something else.
Again, a good example of production design. So you see behind the actor there, the set was mostly these little panel unit, not little, big panel units that were shelving, and the items on the shelves were important parts of the story as well, that they would be important to different characters. But then they were on the back, there was light fabric, and you can see I was able to light them all from behind to give different sets, different settings, different looks. Again, this one, obviously you can look at this picture and who am I supposed to be paying attention to? It's him. But yet she's still present, and yet there's still this sense of place. So good example. And then, here's a different color, but the same idea. You see a more overall look, but this one has a practical in it too. You can see in that back door unit above the door was a sort of like a porch light that you would have on. And this was a show where we really wove projection in a very, it wasn't just about projecting a setting, because you can do that. I want to be in a cornfield and I can project a cornfield onto the back and the scene happens. But with Next to Normal, we used it to get into the mind of the woman that was central to the story, who was slowly losing her grasp on reality after the death of her son. So we use these projections really to demonstrate the fractured nature of her mind. and what she was dealing with at different stages. If there's, I'm sure she's going to go through many of these, but the one in particular that I don't know if you can do it as a video, this one, if you had that loaded up as a video.
I don't, but I could probably pull it up pretty quickly here.
So again, this was a projection of those eyes, and hopefully we will be able to get the video, a little video clip of this, because those eyes blinked and it was incredibly powerful. As she was going through, this was hypnosis, scenes that were related to hypnosis. And
I think I got it. I think it's the right one. It's just loading now, but
okay. So
that was, oh my gosh. I remember the day that we actually like put that projection up, and we all just were screaming because it was like,
it took our breath away.
Yeah.
And of course, with most things lighting, it was probably midnight. That is one thing that is interesting about lighting as one of the collaborative theater arts, is you need the stage empty and dark. And so you are often doing your work when there's no one else that needs that space. You can't be, you can be, but it's hard to be building. It's hard to be rehearsing for actors. It's really, so it's kind of a night owl's jam, which works for me.
I don't know if this is it, but let's see if this is it.
Can you hear me, Diana?
Yes.
Are you nervous?
No.
Good. Now, make up your mind to explore yourself. Make up your mind, you have stories to tell. While searching your past for what sorrows may last, then make up your mind to be well.
Yeah, and it didn't necessarily come up as well in video, because sometimes when it comes video, still pictures and a good photographer are better than video to capture lighting. So there was a gentleman, her dead son was up in the upstage and under that porch light, and he was in a bit more light than it looked like there, sort of reflecting that this disconnect, because in the story she's thinking that he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very much.
That was such a great show. It was so good.
So good.
So like transitioning a little bit, well, I wanted to throw a few pictures up here of Rent, because that was a very unique situation, even though you didn't design this one, where we were in the round, we were really super close. And maybe you can talk a little bit about how it's different when you're up close in a round situation versus a large proscenium stage.
Yeah. So they both have their advantages from a lighting perspective, and both have their challenges. When you are in the round or thrust, and if you've ever seen one of our shows in the black box, that's what we're talking about, where you're sitting on the stage very close on 3 or 4 sides. And then this one was where we created a black box type situation on a stage at the Smith, but again, sitting in the space with the actors. Your what I would say was your parameters are a lot tighter, so you have to be conscious of having lights in the audience's eyes, which you never have to worry about. Or are you catching their knees and lap, and you don't want to do that because that pulls out of the magic. So, but at the same time, you can do really subtle things, or really dramatic things that have a lot of impact, because you're right on top of it. And in some cases, even immersed in it in some degree. With a production like Rent, saying about lighting legs and laps, but in sometimes like this, you can see there that the audience is actually partially lit, and intentionally to sort of bring them into the party, into the story. With Proscenium, let's get. These also had some smaller projections on those screens, which one is there above his head. Beautiful. Look at that contrast with the back wall and the foreground. This is right when he's dying, as you can imagine. Beautiful. Yeah. And then he's walking behind this gossamer drop, this loose, thin drop. So again, he looks like he's leaving.
Mhm.
Yeah, Rent was a good example of lighting where you can play a lot with contrast. You don't have to worry about being as subtle. So, like if you're familiar with, color theory, you can do a lot of contrasting colors. That's a beautiful photo, and a lot of the credit of this photo, you can see a bit of a gobo there. So, like across his shoulder there is you can see
That was the window. Yeah.
that was a window gobo. This is also credit to Kathy, who is an amazing photographer of live theater. It's not
Actually, Kevin Colton took these for us.
Oh, Kevin Colton, I forgot. Equally amazing.
Amazing. Yeah. Both of them.
It takes a pro photographer because that's beautiful. Practicals there, snow.
And that's a hard one to catch right there. I mean, crazy, right? To be able to catch that moment, I think is just dynamite.
Yep.
And we've gotten really good at practicals and like moments that catch emotion, I mean,
yeah. And sometimes dramatic, like those for Rent, very dramatic. Thinking about other shows like the last 5 years, that was a whole different kind of challenge. It took a lighter touch because of the story. So, yeah, I know that one of the things you talked about, Pam, before this was process.
Yeah.
And, if you're thinking about, it's months, first of all, it doesn't just happen when you see audition notices go up. By the time you see an audition notice, we have already, the technicians that are working with the director have already gotten together and made some big decisions about what the thing's going to look like, what it's going to sound like. Is it dialed in completely? No, because it's going to evolve as the show gets blocked and the actors get cast.
But we know what we want it to feel like.
We know what we want it to feel like, absolutely. And we've discussed the limitations of certain spaces and how we can work through them. And all sorts of details, but long before it's ever hits audition notices and read-throughs.
Right. So back to like small black box, we've kind of covered that tightness to big space. Here's a picture from the Smith.
From
Shrek.
Here's Shrek. So, when you think about it, that those pictures you were seeing from the black box, the playing area, meaning the space that the actors are using to act on, is usually anywhere from like maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. And Pam's not good with numbers and picture what that is.
I'm
Almost like
terrible.
almost the size of a big room in your house. Truly, not much bigger than a big great room. When you could, then you jump to the Smith, and you're 40 feet wide. You're 30 feet deep, and you're about, depending on what you decide, you're about 20 feet high. And so it becomes even more of a challenge to both focus attention, but also to fill that space in an interesting way. And often that happens with non-professional, and we are a semi-professional group, but with full professional groups in that kind of budget, you can fill it with set. Oftentimes we cannot. So what you see here is those were two different muslin, so fabric panels, drops we call them, that had just these suggestions of trees cut out of them and then lit from the back. So you get all of this, and the top too. So you get all of this, you get to take advantage of all that depth while at the same time popping out these people right along the front.
Let me find it.
Things, this was a moon box that we built. So little trickery of different things you can do. So if you think about it, what you're looking at is outside of that circle is a wooden box, and cut out of that wooden box is a circle. And then the circle is faced with fabric, light fabric. And then lighting instruments are placed inside it. Light sources are placed inside it. And so you get that kind of tonal quality there. But again, when you're talking about the Smith Opera House, that moon box was, I think, 6 foot.
So, yeah.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And so everything's got to work at that scale.
And this was a different one, wasn't it? Did we make this one?
Yeah, this was a different moon box, different scale. This is, and I'm glad you're getting into the high school stuff, because, even when you're working with high schools and amateurs, you still can have strong production design, and so this is Anything Goes at Geneva High School. And that was a different kind of moon box because she wanted a less subtle moon. She wanted it more pop art, kind of classic, not quite cartoony, but it has, if you're familiar with the Art Nouveau style, I know I'm throwing a lot of things around, but Google that, Art Nouveau, and you'll see it was a very specific style that without knowing the name, that had these lines like the curves of those, the smokestacks of the ship weren't going straight up. They've got this angle to them, and the staircases had this angle, and they often have featured this really bright moon. This also features a star drop. If you're watching this, you're thinking, Pam loves the star drop, and she does love a star drop, but you can see why. It adds this amazing sense of depth. And those can be created a bunch of different ways. We've learned lots of sneaky ways to make star drops. And going all the way back to when we first started to just the most recent production, we did a different kind of star panel, really. Anyway, this was fun too, combination of new school and old school. Those portholes, I don't know if you've got more pictures, but those were LED. And
I
so
don't know if Anything Goes, but
okay, those portholes changed color because of course we could because they were LED, individual LED.
yeah.
So we were able to change the color of those. So
Here's another moon.
here's another moon. This is a projected moon this time.
Yeah.
In Big
That was
Fish.
Fish this past summer.
Yeah, and I think was this Brooks' design?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had a lot of fun with that wall that you see is made up of pallets that are stacked in secured together, and had a lot of fun with the texture of that and the images that were kind of broken up as they went through it, similar to the, again, mimicking the story of these stories that the main character tells aren't quite straightforward. They aren't quite what they seem to be. And so again, mimicking that in this broken up images on the back. Really nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up a couple more big fish photos there.
So again, this is you're seeing here playing with, because when you think about light, you also have to think about shadow. And so here's a great example of really working with a combination of old school and new school instruments, and using the texture of those palettes that are obviously, not perfect, but then also using a gobo to break that up. Really nice, emphasizing he was supposed to be, in this photo it's not exactly clear just because it's a more artistic photo, but the person in the background is supposed to be a giant, emphasizing his height, with this really these stretched directional beams of light and shadow. Another case of a good practical. You see there in the back, more projection of trees onto that surface. Yeah.
This was a unique production because of the palette wall. So we had a lot of projection that we were playing with during Big Fish. But one of the shows that I was trying to pull up for you, Arj, that I think that you would probably be very proud of is Talk Everlasting.
Yeah. This was another high school production, folks. I mean, and when I'm sure you're going to show a couple, this was such a beautiful. So those trees constructed by Simon and Robin were made of. They were just a shell, a frame, and all that was craft paper, like that white or that brown craft paper that comes inside your Amazon boxes.
They weren't even round; they were flat.
Yeah, they were flat. We were able to light them sometimes from the front, sometimes from the back, directly down, and do all this cool stuff to create some depth on a stage that doesn't have a ton of depth. And so this was a very, when it comes to lighting, very artistic piece in a lot of different ways. Beautiful use of silhouette. That was a wonderful mother and son moment.
Husband and wife, that was.
Or husband and wife. Sorry, husband and wife. There was a large tree on one side of the stage that you see there. And of course, the silhouette, but then also what you can't really see in this picture until I tell you what to look for. At the base of the tree there, you see there's some blue on the tree trunk there. In real life, in real time, that flickered, so it looked like water at the base, because that was key to the story. There was this magic pool of water at the base of this tree. And so we did we messed with that a lot to be able to get that to pop out. But that's a great picture. Another fun little practical, which was a jar with lights in it. But then also poof, like a very traditional looking blue sky in a forest, little tiny house in the forest, a picket fence. And then when we went to do internals of that and other houses, we were able to play with that isolated lighting where you're popping the two characters out on the right while he's telling a story about
Yeah, this is a good example of a memory. Like like this is a good use of time. Like the lighting is indicating a time,
Yeah.
and we were trying to indicate this being a memory for him. And
Yeah, contrasting present and past.
yeah. Look how pretty that is.
That's a really pretty shot. Again, emphasizing isolation. She had lost,
Her family, all of them.
yeah, all of them. And this was the end of a sequence when she was remembering all of them. And I believe, oh, and then there's indicating water. All right, so here let's do a bunch of stuff here. So this is another version of referencing stars in a more abstract way. So this is when the two characters are supposed to be on a rowboat in the middle of a lake or a pond. And you've got these stars indicated, not necessarily as like the last picture from Anything Goes, it looked like a field of stars. This is just a more of an indication of stars with a night sky, and then them being popped out in a very dark stage, almost blacklight, almost, not quite, almost blacklight. And again, what you can't see in a still photograph necessarily is if behind them on the left and the right, you can see these sort of amber figures. There were cast members that were singing, but they were also acting sort of as a Greek chorus to this scene, which is just beautiful. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful shot.
Yeah. I pulled up some shots from SpongeBob also, because this is also a high school production that we did. And I just thought some of the really unique tricks that we used for this show were so effective. This is a mix of projection and lighting.
Yep.
And I mean, how do you indicate a meteor shower on stage?
Right. Right. Yeah. With more contemporary and fantastical stuff, I'm thinking SpongeBob and those kinds of things. That's why you're seeing a lot more projection, because I can't paint a drop that is a meteor shower. Yeah. So there were a lot of cool things that we were able to do. And at the time of SpongeBob, we were a little bit limited at the high school with lighting. So what you're seeing is another side of where you're really having to make the most of what you have. And we certainly do that a lot with semi-professional and non-professional. So this is another mix of projection and practical. Those were actual physical ladders that are attached.
I don't think there was any projection on this.
I thought just the center. So I thought we might have had some movement.
No,
maybe not.
No.
Oh no, that was all light from the behind. That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's right. To create this, this climactic moment. But I mean, even something that I'm seeing, not everybody was important, but up above the action there, that little strip with those jellyfish-like things that are popping out in neon, that was done with neon paint and black light. So we had a row of black lights above each one of those, and to make them pop out for the jellyfish.
Yeah. So let's talk about black light for a second.
Yeah, certainly blacklight's an old school technique. I mean, they used it as far back as, it's been around forever. But with SpongeBob, we used it in a different way than, say, Seussical, but they have stuff in common. So you see that, you've got your actors that are all in black, so they're virtually invisible, because of the necessity to have a spot on him. You see one ensemble member's face there, but there's a whole cast of people with cards on their hands that were interacting with him in blacklight.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we also had a little practical here that I thought was kind of cool.
yeah, right. So there was a battery powered light inside of this box. So they had that cool thing where when you open a box and it goes, oh, the light comes out of the box.
I
It's always good.
don't know what this is. Oh, that's a rent picture.
That's right. Do you have any of Seussical, Pam?
Don't.
Okay.
I didn't get any Seussical
That's
photos.
okay. That's okay. It's a long time ago
I
now.
thought this would be a good time to kind of transition to lighted signs because we love those too.
They are so one of those things, friends in the listening audience. They have such huge impact,
Mhm.
but they take so long to build, and they're usually on stage in front of the audience for 30 seconds or less, right? They're pulled in, so there's individual lighting bases, just like you might see in your basement light, and those are all connected to wood frame, and
Each one has a bulb.
each one has an individual bulb, and then there's a series of wiring that jumps from one light to the next. This is probably the biggest one we ever did, and this literally came down at the end of the show. And that's it.
People loved
But
it.
people it got a sign got a standing ovation. Like that, it's really, you can see the payoff there. It's we've found little ways to mitigate signs with black light and fluorescent paint, but sometimes you just need that Squidward, the Guys and Dolls. Sometimes you just need that big old sign.
Yeah.
That's a great shot. That's a Smith Opera House show. More. I mean, obviously there's the only light on that is from that. That's just how bright that sign was.
You can see how tall that sign is from the size of the buildings.
Oh yeah. I think
That
it was
very enormous sign.
it was 16 feet high.
It was
remember.
Real big. Yeah. Yep. So I pulled some pictures from this production that I know you're proud of. I know I'm proud of.
Mm-hmm.
Alice by Heart. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the speed and pace of which we did this.
Yeah. Another layer of this is this would be very similar to when you're touring a show to small houses. In this case, it was bringing a show in for competition through the Rochester Fringe Festival. And what that means is that the house that you're going to be performing at, which you get to choose, but not exactly. You're finally assigned to a venue. Then they tell you what lighting is there. And usually you're sharing that stage with multiple productions. So you'll only get 2, 3, 4 special lighting areas just for your production. And you have to sort of be really and work on the fly. You have to really experienced team. So we had 12 hours to load in the set and make any changes to lighting and have a run through so the performers could actually perform it on that stage. They had been rehearsing in a gymnasium. And so what you see here is, again, creative use of what was there. That's a parachute in the back. If you were a kid, you might remember in gym class when you do the thing with the parachute. That's a big old parachute. And those were just the overhead lights that were there. We were able to do some projections because the facility had that. So This is a great shot of the inside of a subway tunnel. This was fractured glass, but it was projected on that parachute. So it, not perfectly stretched like some of those other ones where you saw, backlighting and silhouette. It's a stretched piece of fabric. This was moving and not tied, not completely down. And it was, yeah, great shot.
And then the last piece of that show was them getting out of this place where they were stuck down below. And so we wanted there to be kind of this kind of godly light that indicated they were found and released. And you were able to replicate that moment for us in a really short amount of time.
Yeah. And you can get a good feel there of the texture of that parachute that we had. Yeah, that was another one though, but it's a timed, an intentional sequence. There was the sound effect of a door opening, like they were getting let out of this subway system that they had been taking refuge in from war. And, you had that whole thing happen where you can imagine that moment when the door opens in this pitch dark space and then sunlight comes just aggressively charging at you.
Mm-hmm. I know that you were not the designer for Sweeney Todd when we did Sweeney Todd, but I thought that was something to talk about briefly because I think it was such a powerful design.
Yeah.
And intentional.
Yes.
And we used a series of red bulbs that were there to indicate, the killings that were happening. It wasn't always red like that, but it was red when there were killings happening. And right. I just thought it was such a neat way to indicate something happening in the story.
Right. Yeah. And it's a good example of, and I told him this afterwards, it doesn't have to be complicated. This was in some ways surprisingly a really simple design, meaning it was a very tight color palette, a lot of reds, a lot of stark whites, and using that contrast so that like you've still got him there, Sweeney, tortured, lit from the top, so you get that sort of, we usually know that as something bad's going to happen, light, but you still got the chair up there in red. There's still this ominous, but then you go to a place like this, and all of a sudden you can make this tiny change, which is going from reds to blues, and you've associated the space with red, so that when you come here and it's a totally different quality of light, it really makes you feel like you're somewhere different.
Right. One of the challenges of this show was there was a series of scenes where we were in the basement as well as in the upstairs of the home at the same time. And so there was a lot going on. And this was the sub basement, and you can see she's searching for him. And you can see the gobo we used to kind of show the grate into the basement. And then, of course, there was the oven.
Right.
Which we built externally from the room, actually.
So those double doors that you see are the double doors from the outside into the theater. So like outdoors, like not a hallway, like out in nature.
And we put up a tent and we lit the inside of that tent, and it was extremely effective. extremely effective. Loved it. Well, what else could we say? I mean, we've just kind of talked about a lot of different things, and I so appreciate your knowledge and sharing, how much we love the art form of the design of lighting and how powerful it can be. And, talked about special effects and how it can be different on different stages.
Yeah.
Were there any horror stories you can think of? I'm just remembering we've only ever stopped a show once, you and I, at the Smith Opera House because it's what
the dimmers overheated.
Okay, something happened with the lighting.
Yeah, the dimmers overheated.
Literally had to stop the show.
Yeah, there was a moment in time when the Smith Opera House was not air conditioned, and the dimmers, we used to have to keep fans on them, and then when we did shows in the summer, and as the shows got bigger and more complicated, it just happened that they overheated and shut down. So yeah, I would put that right up there with and a lot of those are, whenever you do a production in a historic space, you end up with some pretty harrowing tales. The Smith is a challenging space to work in. It's expensive to work in. It's the lighting positions are precarious to get to. You have to be very much a climber.
Very high. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's always a matter of, at one point, the spotlight that they had was a carbon arc. If you can imagine, it was almost like an open flame inside of a giant tube.
Oh.
And, one false move and that goes out, and only one person, in Toronto knows how to repair it. That was a lot of the tensest of moments came at the Smith Opera House. As much as it's near and dear to my heart.
Beautiful space, but it really wasn't built for theater. It was built for opera and music.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't meant really for that. But I mean, it's a beautiful space. Beautiful space.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have it here in our community.
Yes, absolutely.
We're lucky that we've been able to work in that space, in the high school space, in the community center black box space. And,
Cobblestone Arts in Canandaigua, where Evan Hansen's going to be.
We worked at Fatzinger Hall in Waterloo and Minders Academy. We used to work at the, at the college in Seneca Falls. We've been in so many spaces. And then, just even some scrappy spaces like some wineries and some restaurants. And we worked at the Bellhurst. And
we did a show at Ventosa.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been in lots and lots of spaces. And I think that has made us very intentional with our work and careful with our planning and our design. And there's power in that, I think. It's made us really smart designers, I think. So
nimble, I would say.
Nimble, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're always looking for new people that are interested in lighting, that want to learn. It's hard to find technicians now. Why do you think it's so hard to find technicians?
Time commitment is one. There's not a lot of glory in it. You have to take, the thing I hate most is when like high schools will let the tech crew come out and take a bow. Like that's not what it's about. You have to be it's not that you're totally selfless, but there's something about yourself. You have to know that when the audience is doing a standing ovation for the cast, that it's a reflection on you as well. There's a certain selflessness that has to be a part of it. It's a little bit of a glutton for punishment. Let me make it sound bad, but in college, our tech t-shirt said first in, last out.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way it is. You know, the cast is coming in to do their thing and leave, and then you're getting things set up and shutting down. But I do think that it is something that I would love for folks to consider, especially if, when it comes to lighting, you know, it's a techie sort of thing, and now more so than when I started. So, just as an aside, when I did my first taste of lighting was in high school at Mid Lakes High School at Phelps, Clifton Springs, New York. They still had this giant thing on the wall that you went chunk to turn lights on and chunk to turn them off. I mean, now there's more computers than anything else. And
Yeah.
so if you're someone that's really like into computers and tech and even digital media in different ways, it might be fun for you to give it a shot. It's I find that when we're talking with high school kids, getting those kids that want to be in it, they want to be, and this is for grown-ups too, want to be a part of it, want to be in the mix, but maybe don't see themselves as all that artistic. It's a place that you can kind of scratch that itch without having a spotlight on you or having to draw or paint or something like that.
Well, thanks for chatting with us tonight.
Thank you.
I wanted to kind of quickly just say that, our upcoming production we're in the middle of production right now for Dear Evan Hansen, which we're super excited about, April 2nd through 12th. And that will be at the Cobblestone Arts Center in Farmington. And we are the regional premiere for this. Like, it's so cool to be able to have this brand new piece of theater accessible to us, and it will be unique as far as the projection piece of this show is very kind of grounded in social media. So we have that to contend with, and that's going to be a little challenging.
Yeah. The thing about yes. So Dear Evan Hansen, amazing, can't wait. But you might be too shy and retiring to recognize that you are going to be recognized with a wonderful Community Arts Award for St. Peter's Arts Academy.
Thank you.
Your work in advancing and promoting the arts in the Finger Lakes and Geneva specifically. And funny that they honor two people each year. And the other person was a member when we were doing Geneva Theater Guild Youth Theater, was one of our little kids. That was in the shows, and he still plays in the pit for a lot of our shows now. So it's kind of fun to have that. But I would just congratulations, very well deserved.
Thank you.
And I'm proud of you and the work that you've done. You want to just do a quick pitch for the rest of the season? I'm lighting. So Brooke is lighting Evan Hansen. Yep. And then I'm lighting Amelie.
Actually, Garrett is lighting Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, okay.
You are lighting Amelie.
Yep.
Which is coming in June, which is going to be so unique and special. This is such a unique and special little piece of theater, and I'm so excited to be able to tackle this one. And we'll be at the Black Box Theater in Geneva at the Community Center for Amelie. And then we will also be at the Black Box this summer for Dogfight. And Brooke, I think, is lighting this one this summer. So we're looking forward to that too. This is a really favorite of theater people. I think love this show, and maybe it's not as popular as people or people don't recognize it maybe. But it's one of those underground hits that theater people it's in our hearts and we love it. So I ironically 2 Pasek and Paul shows this season, which I just noticed like last week. The music is just dynamite for both Dear Evan Hansen and Dogfight. Those are Amelie too, but that's a different composer. But so we're excited about our season. It's I can't believe that we've been doing this for 10 years. And when I say this, I mean Theater 444. RJ and I have been doing theater for almost 40 years. Right. With Geneva Theater Guild and Seneca Community Players and whoever will take us, Phelps Community Theater, whoever would let us do anything. And then we broke off and kind of created our own little group here. And this group has been going for 10 years, and this is our 10th season. And it's just shocking to me. I mean, time flies when you're having fun, I guess. It's shocking that it's been 10 years. So
we hope that we really do hope that you'll find a little place in it. We are always looking, performers, of course, and we love them, but we need people to build sets and take tickets and come up with props and help us run things backstage during the show. There's lots of different ways to get involved. And then, we're not afraid of the big ask, because guess what? We'd love to have a home space.
Yeah.
We'd love to have a space that could be ours every time. So if you have a older building or a warehouse or something like that you'd like us to come look at and see if maybe we could make that our home, we'd love to talk to you about it.
Yeah. What we do is hard, but it's even harder because we are constantly moving things and squeezing ourselves into smaller spaces, and it's challenging.
Yeah.
So, and it's costly too.
Yeah, right.
Really
Because we
is.
have to rent things that we could, if we had our own space, we could buy them and pay for themselves, several times over, but we have to rent them. So, yeah. Who's
So
up next for the theater talks, Pam?
next up is Garrett.
Oh, cool.
Garrett's coming March 1st, which isn't too far away, a couple weeks away. He's talking about sound design, which is also another one of those, if you don't notice it, I did my job well kind of things. And we don't think much about it, but the truth is,
Oh my God.
you can't hear the dang show. You don't know what's going on. And it is critical. And I've learned that over the years, how critical that little piece is. So I'm excited to talk to Garrett about sound design on March 1st. Another one of these Theater Talk shows in the evening. You can get your tickets to Dear Evan Hansen already on theater444.com. That's theater with an R-E. And one last kind of plug for our patrons. We thank them so much. Our patrons have been generous to us, and they keep us going every year. This year, we're at about 40% of our operating budget right now. We'd really love to fill in the gap of that other 60%. So if you have the means, we would love and appreciate your support financially, and you can also make a donation at theater444.com. So
We are a nonprofit organization affiliated with a national nonprofit, but we are a nonprofit organization. Sometimes people think that we're not, but we certainly are not for profit. We hold our own, but we're certainly not for profit. So tax deductible, all that kind of business.
So thanks, RJ, for your time. I so appreciate it. And we hope everybody had a good time tonight. And if you're watching on the rerun, you can still leave us some comments and let us know if this was helpful to you, to kind of get a picture of how deeply we think about these things. I know it's kind of crazy, but we really do think about all of the little nitty gritty things that you maybe don't even notice that we've thought about. It's magic. It's complete magic.
Sure
So
is. Sure is.
good night, everybody. Thanks so much.